Today we're going to talk about a framework that can totally transform reading from something painful into something powerful. But first, I want you to do something for me. I want you to take a second and think back, way back to your own school days. Go on, really think about it. What's that one joyful reading memory that pops into your head? Maybe it was a teacher reading a book out loud, doing all the voices perfectly. Or maybe it was that feeling of getting your very own first ever library card. For most of us, I bet a pretty happy memory just came to mind.
But what if it wasn't? That's a direct quote from author and educator Tan Hun, and his story is really the heart of everything we're going to explore today.
See, for Tan Huynh, his most powerful reading memory comes from his 6th grade English class. He was actually excited to volunteer to read aloud for the class, but what should have been a simple, positive moment, well, it turned into something else entirely. It became a moment of pure anxiety. And the way he describes the experience is just, wow, it's so vivid. He said his classmates' reading was like a river. It was flowing, it was dynamic, but his was, and I quote, like watching a pearl of cold water slowly drip from an icicle. He was struggling with almost every single word.
Think about that. All of his brain power, every last bit of focus, was going into just figuring out what the words on the page were. So by the time he actually managed to say a word out loud, he had no idea what he just read. There was literally no mental space left to understand the meaning.
After just 2 sentences, his teacher gently stepped in and had someone else take over. And he says he was grateful she rescued him, but she couldn't rescue him from the bruised confidence that moment left behind. It stuck with him. So this is the classic problem, right? When a student struggles like this, our first instinct is often to just give them an easier book. But the whole idea we're digging into today says that's exactly the wrong move. The problem isn't the student, and it's not even the text. It's the support system, or lack thereof, that we build around them. Which brings us to the million-dollar question. How do we build a bridge for these students? A bridge that gets them to real understanding without just making the gap smaller by taking away the challenge they need to grow? And the answer is this absolutely brilliant concept called scaffolding. Just like the scaffolds on a building, they're temporary supports that let workers get the higher floors. Well, reading scaffolds are temporary supports that help students access complex, grade-level texts. We're not lowering the building, we're giving them a way to climb. And the how is surprisingly simple. It's a clean, practical, 3-part framework. We provide support before reading, during reading, and after reading. So let's break down what each of those looks like. First up, what we do before the student even sees the text. This whole phase is about preparing the text itself, using a technique called text engineering. Now, text engineering sounds super technical, but it's really not. The key idea here is that you are not rewriting the text or dumbing it down. Nope. You're simply adding things to the original text to make it easier to navigate. The challenge stays, but you're building in some on-ramps. So what does that actually look like? Well, it could be adding a few synonyms for tricky words right there in the margins, or maybe breaking up a really long, dense chapter with some clear headings, or even adding a couple of photos with captions to give some visual context. They're small tweaks, but they can be a total game changer. Okay, so you've prepped the text. Now we move on to the next phase, what happens while the student is actually reading. And the name of the game here is active engagement, because let's be real, you can't build understanding if you're just passively letting your eyes skim across the page. And there are 3 really powerful strategies for this. First, students can annotate, making notes or little sketches to summarize what they're reading in their own words. Second, you can have them do collaborative reading, where they talk with a partner to figure out the meaning together. This is so powerful because it gets their thinking out in the open. And third, there's guided reading, which gives them direct support from a teacher in a small group. You see the pattern here? They all break the text down and get students to actively construct meaning as they go. So after all that active work during the reading, we get to what's often the toughest part of the whole journey, the after. The student has all this information swirling around in their head, and now they've got to pull it all together and make sense of it. A fantastic tool to help with this is the guided summary. It's a simple idea. The teacher gives the student a few sentence starters, but here's the secret sauce. These aren't just random prompts. They are carefully designed to point students directly toward the main ideas and the most important details in the text. So prompts like "this central concept is," or "an important detail to remember was," they act like a homing beacon. They take all that noise and information and help the student zero in on what really matters for comprehension, all without just handing them the answer. Okay, so we've walked through this whole framework, before, during, and after. We've talked about all these scaffolds and strategies. But let's just zoom out for a second and remember why we're even talking about this. It all comes back to that story from the beginning and the hope that we can create a very different kind of memory for our students.
Because the real goal here, the whole point of the text engineering and the annotations and the guided summaries, it's to make reading feel successful, to make it feel affirming, and yes, to make it a genuinely joyful experience. It's about trading in that bruised confidence for a real sense of pride and discovery.
This quote really says it all. Our job isn't to take away the challenge. Challenge is where learning happens. Our job is to provide the right scaffolds so that students can rise to that challenge and build that meaning for themselves. So I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. Whether you're an educator, a parent, or just someone who loves to learn, how can you use some of these ideas to make the next reading experience, for yourself or for someone else, a truly joyful one?